So I think I'm going to go ahead and get started. I believe that I'm on Facebook. Right now I'm coming off of Zoom. And what you're hopefully seeing is part of our Organization of Space and Time session. Now, this isn't going to be exactly like the session. What fun would that be? But the last time we were together, I talked about kind of just some foundational experiences around getting ready for making a shift in your classroom in terms of instructional strategies and practices. And one of the things that I like to share is this idea of Jenga. And this is kind of how I look at how we experience children coming into kindergarten. 70% of the children in the state of Arizona do not get early childhood experiences with respect to kind of an early childhood, formal early childhood educational experience, 0 to 5 years of age. And the 30% that do often get high quality experiences. There is a difference. There's a significant difference between a high quality early childhood experience where there is lots of opportunities for connection, for with an adult who really and truly cares about the child. And that has opportunities for language development, opportunities for exploration, discovery, through play-based experiences, where children feel that they can be who they really are and that they're supported in what is of interest to them. There are some incredible programs in the state of Arizona, but unfortunately there are lots of programs that don't meet those high-quality expectations that we have for young children. And the unfortunate truth to it is that a lot of children in our state, 70% of our children in our state, don't have those types of formal experiences. And when they come to kindergarten, they come with all different types of backgrounds. And let me see if I think this is the next slide over. I'll come back to this Jenga. So children come from infant, toddler, preschool care, pre-kindergarten programs, Head Start, early Head Start, friends and family care, and some children come from homeless shelters and shelter care. And that's where a lot of my experience comes from, is working with children who are in the most difficult of circumstances. And they then, and in early childhood preschool, 0 to 5, we have in our state of Arizona the early learning standards and the infant toddler guidelines. And we have tools like the ECHRS, which is the Early Childhood Environment Rating Scale, and CLASS, which really looks at our engagement in helping children really think critically and really support their language development, actually, in a lot of ways. And so we have all of these systems and tools for 0 to 5, and for those children who are attending high-quality programs. And we have clear guidelines and expectations around what young children, what the types of experiences they should have. And so I'll give you an example of these, is that the majority of a child's day should be in child-centered, child-initiated types of experiences, where they get to have opportunities to play in areas like the block area, the socio-dramatic play area, the creative arts area, maybe the library area, and so that they have time. Most of their day should be spent in child-initiated types of experiences. So when we know this about 0 to 5, and they come from all of these backgrounds in a lot of these programs, we have adhered to and believe aligned with best practices in terms of brain development, that this is what young children need. And then what happens is they come into kindergarten. And they come into kindergarten. So today I was a pre-kindergarten student. And the maximum amount of time that I spent in a large group time should only be 10, possibly 15 minutes if I'm super engaged in the experience. And then I go to kindergarten. And all of a sudden, I'm expected to sit for much longer periods of time. Somewhere it's upwards of 30, 40 minutes at a time. We have also seen where children are in whole group experiences. So let me define whole group experiences. Whole group experiences, anytime you have an expectation for children to do the same thing as a group. So it doesn't just mean that teachers are conducting or leading a group. Rather, if all the children are sitting at the tables and they're working on a particular worksheet, that's a whole group experience. And so what I've seen in some places, they go from whole group circle time, and then they move to whole group table time. And then we do a brain game activity so that, I think they're called brain breaks. And so then it's supposed to give the brain a break, and then we go back to whole group circle time. Now, that expectation is completely developmentally inappropriate. But it happens. It happens in a lot of places where yesterday the child was pre-kindergarten with all of these very clear guidelines about what is best practice. And then the next day they're kindergarten, and now we have expectations that don't align with best practice. Now, I will tell you one thing that I think is super, super, super important, and I don't have a slide for this one on this presentation, but it's one that I will post on our Facebook page. The first 6 to 8 weeks must be spent supporting children's social and emotional development. Now, I'm going to move this to, let me see, I'm going to switch out of this. So I'm going to do a new share. And I'm going to go to the whiteboard because I think this is a really important thing to indicate. And I'm going to type this up here. There are 4 particular areas. And I don't know if I did this the last time we came together for this webinar, but I think it's so important. I'm going to mention it every time we're together. So 4 areas for the first 6 to 8 weeks. Too often I hear teachers say to me, administrators are saying that I need to do X, Y, and Z right out the gate because we've got to get ready for this assessment and this assessment. Now, I will tell you that if you do not spend the first 6 to 8 weeks on social and emotional development, you will spend the rest of the entire school year dealing with issues around behavior, children not feeling connected, because misbehavior is an unmet need. That's a really important thing to remember. The other thing that's really significant to remember is that idea of attention-seeking behaviors is all false. Children aren't seeking attention, they're seeking connection. And the truth of it is, if you don't spend the first 6 to 8 weeks of school focusing on children's social and emotional development, helping them feel connected to you and to the other children in the classroom and to the school, you're going to give that time up as time progresses. So as the year continues, if the children don't get those emotional needs met, you will start to have to deal with difficult and challenging behaviors. So this time spent at the beginning of the school year creating, and these are what I call the 4 R's, okay? These are the 4 R's. These are significantly important for the first 6 weeks of life. The first one, and I think I mentioned this in the last session because I remember getting Trisha said something about which one comes first. I'm going to tell you that I'm going to put relationships here, rules, routines, and rituals. Okay? So as you're getting ready for the school year, what's this going to look like in practice? You're going to have to establish. Now, I did this kind of backwards than I did the first time. Really, in my mind, rules, routines, rituals, and then relationships. And the reason is because as a classroom teacher, you really need to know what your expectations are and what you hope to accomplish collectively for the classroom group and as a classroom community. So I'm going to move from this. So I had to write this down in case you didn't attend the first webinar. These are the 4 R's. This is what you should be doing the first 6 weeks of school. I'm going to switch over now to, let me see where you share. We're going to go to some photos. Actually, no, let's look at classroom design. So one of the things that I really stress, and today Marisa and Debbie are on their way to Sholo to help out with some of our EdKey teachers in that region of the state to set up their classrooms. And so this is something that we spend a significant amount of time supporting teachers in knowing how to design their classroom. Now, why is this important? Because your classroom is your additional teacher, and most teachers in our state, kindergarten teachers, do not have a second teacher in the classroom. And even when you do have a second teacher in the classroom, you know, having a well-built classroom environment really helps children get focused, and really be able to shine in the areas that they are most interested in. It's the best opportunity to support that content learning and developing skills is when children are super engaged in the learning that is that sparks that flame for them. And so setting up your environment is your second teacher. And I will tell you, in terms of behaviors, if you do a well-designed classroom, you can reduce behaviors by 80 to 85%, behavioral issues. And so it's super important to take a look at some of those designs and layouts. And let's do that. Let me see if I can kind of pop out of this, and I'm going to give you some examples. This is often what we see in a classroom. This is often what we see in a kindergarten classroom. When we go into rooms, we see tables, a teacher's area, and people have asked me how I feel about teachers' desks in classrooms, and I know this is very upsetting to a lot of teachers. I think that space should be a very small space. I think that you should have enough space to be able to sit and work at a computer, but it should not have your 25 years of teaching, all your resources collective in that space. I think this classroom, a classroom, it belongs to the teacher and the children, and that most of the square footage in the classroom should really be dedicated to utilizing them for learning areas, not for teachers' materials. That's true as well for, oftentimes there are shelves in the classroom, but they're kind of stacked up with teachers' resources and materials and things that you've collected over the years. All of the shelves in the classroom should really be for children's materials that are accessible to them, not just storage for teachers. And so this is often what we see. We almost always see a horseshoe table in a classroom. I have to tell you, I don't like horseshoe tables, not because they don't serve a specific purpose. I just think that they take too much space. And I also believe that you can accomplish the same task at a regular table. So for the amount of space that a horseshoe table takes, we just don't love them when we're rearranging classrooms. But this is often what we see in a kindergarten classroom. Now, this is what, even when teachers I have met who taught in the day when we had socio-dramatic play areas and we had block areas in the classroom, often what we would see is tables in the center of the room, and then we would have our furniture for our learning centers up against the walls. Now, this is an example of a teacher who is moving in the direction of really utilizing learning areas. But let me tell you what we understand in terms of what the research says around this. It's when we have the learning areas as opportunities for children kind of pushed away into corners. The perception is really, this is what we do when we have time. The perception is, this isn't your learning. This is simply, something we get to do maybe on Fridays. I hear that a lot. Or I hear where schools have made the decision to call certain rooms social emotional rooms, and they have an empty classroom, and they're creating these learning areas in these rooms. Now, there's a huge problem with this because that's additional transitions for children, and it doesn't honor how children actually learn and the types of experiences they need. And so this, so I will tell you though, so on one end, I'm going to tell you that this isn't the best situation, but on the other end, I'm going to tell you for teachers who are really having I just need to kind of inch my way into this. This is an acceptable way to inch your way into this. So I don't want you to walk away with going, oh my goodness, it's a really bad thing for kids. But I will tell you what we understand about children in this type of learning environment. When children, when the areas are defined, and if you notice here, and I don't know if you can see my cursor, but I'm going to try to move it around here. We want the areas to be well defined. That means that, see, in this creative arts area, it's kind of open. And here we have a sign. So you just have to pretend that this is a shelf right here. And then where we have our tables and chairs, we have shelves dividing the space. Now, the reason why we define spaces is because what we understand about young children is that they are much more in tuned to the opportunities when it is well defined. That means that it's kind of blocked off a little bit. It helps with children, particularly who have some focus issues, who might potentially have ADD or ADHD. It really helps focus in the types of experiences that are right in front of them. I know for me, it's very helpful for spaces to be defined. It also is a sense of safety for children. I know this sounds really goofy and weird, but what we understand is that when the spaces are defined for kids, they go deeper in the learning. They're less distracted. They're less apt to kind of drop what they're doing and run to something else. And when the materials that they need are accessible to them in that area. So I'm going to give you an example in the block area. When in the block area, what will naturally happen, there has never been a group of children that I have worked with that this didn't happen. As they're building and they're constructing, there's an opportunity to write. They can write signs, they can write notes, don't touch, they can write, this is my building. And then they start to actually put signs on their construction, or even with blueprints, having them draw out or sketch out their design and their thinking process. This is the opportunity there always presents itself when there are writing materials such as index cards, clipboards with paper, pencils and markers. And so we want children to have that accessible to them. Now, you know, there's nothing wrong with the child going across the room to find those materials and bring them back to the block area. There's nothing wrong with that. But when it's easily accessible, the thought doesn't disappear within a matter of minutes, because we know that's what happens with 5-year-old children sometimes. So again, we want to just stress that this is a way to do this. This is kind of in the direction of introducing learning areas within your classroom. So here you see some examples of these learning areas. I'm going to go to the next page, and it also, you see where there is your horseshoe table is in the classroom still. The next one is another example, and you see that there are tables now. There's a table in the creative arts area. This freaks people out, because the idea is like, oh my goodness, I can't have all the children together in one space. The truth of it is, most classrooms aren't ginormous classrooms, and if you need to speak to the group as a whole, you can still do that, even though children are in the creative arts area sitting at tables, if they need to be at a table for whatever reason. So you see here that this is a math shelf, the circle shelf, and then this here is the circle table attached to the math area. So one of the things that we want to do is attach shelves. So the idea is that children have an understanding that this area here is the creative arts area, or the visual arts area. That's probably the truest definition, is visual arts, not creative arts. So this is the visual arts area, and we've got materials for you to use and on this shelf. And this is the table that you're going to use when you take something off the shelf. This is the table. And so it has to make sense to children. So when you're designing a classroom, you have to make sure that your areas make sense. So an example of that, if you happen to have a sink, not everybody does, but if you have a sink in the classroom or a restroom with a sink, putting your visual arts area right next to that makes sense, because you're going to have spills and you're going to have children who are going to need to wash their brushes and fill their paint cups and all of that. And so you want to create that space around the sink and cabinets. You also want, there's a rule of thumb for the block area. You want to make sure that your block area is protected on 3 sides. Okay, this is a really important thing, 3 sides. Ideally, there would be, and I think there's a next one here. Yeah, I'm going to go through this one here. So yeah, let's go to the next one, because this is a better design. So let me go back to the first. Okay, so this is what we typically see. This is kind of moving in the direction of adding learning areas in the classroom where the tables are still grouped together. Okay. The next one is, I now have grouped the tables, for the most part, are grouped together, although you can see that one is attached to a math shelf. and the other two are sort of attached to a shelf that maybe, you know, we don't have a specific area for defined in that space. Now, I will tell you another problem as I look at this just right away. If you look here, right in here, this to me is running space. This to me is opportunities to kind of walk around aimlessly. And so we want to make sure that spaces are defined for lots of reasons, as I mentioned, but also that it breaks down the space so that children have to kind of move around the furniture a little bit. I know teachers get a little like, oh my goodness, they feel a bit claustrophobic about this space. It actually, you know, I have always had classroom environment like this, and for me, I see children get far more engaged in their experiences, and the idea of feeling like it's closing in, the walls are closing in, I just have never had that. So I know though that some teachers struggle with this. So now in this page here, this example here, I want to kind of go through a little bit of each of the areas. Not all, obviously, we're not going to be able to reach all teachers in terms of supporting classroom design at the beginning of the school year. So I'm hoping that this is helpful. And even those of you who do get support, sometimes when you're in the moment of it, it's very overwhelming because we're pulling stuff off your shelves, we're taking things out of cabinets, and you're kind of like, I'm not completely certain what the rationale behind moving this here versus this here. Debbie and I work really well together in terms of setting up the environment. But what I find very interesting is that each one of us have our own design style. And so I can look at a classroom and go, oh, Debbie's been here. And I'm sure she can do it when she sees classrooms that I've helped design. So we all have our own, and there isn't one right way, but there are rules, or there are things that we have learned over the course of, 20 years of what works best for children. And I will tell you, you will set up your classroom at the beginning of the year and something may not go right. And you will say something, the kids, either they have a difficult time in this area or a difficult time transitioning because of the way that this area is designed. It's okay to make those adjustments. But what I say to teachers all of the time, please engage children in the conversation about why you moved things. Because when children are starting to develop their relationship with the school, with you, with their peers, they sometimes shifts, particularly for children who come from difficult backgrounds, are significant life changes. Even though they're little tiny things for you, it's like, I don't know if anyone's ever gotten their hair cut or their hair done differently, and the children are like, what did you do? They totally notice, and they notice because you're important to them, and their classroom is just as important to them. So we want to make sure that we honor them by letting them know why we are making the moves that we are making in our classroom. Okay, so let's start here on the far top left, the dramatics. It's actually, we call it the socio-dramatic play area now. And in this particular area, we advise that it is next to the block area. Okay, so that your two areas. Why? Because we encourage children to move from the socio-dramatic play area to the block area. We actually encourage the materials from one space to go into the other space. Now, I know this freaks teachers out. I know that this is a very hard thing to grasp because, we don't want things to be completely chaotic and out of sorts. Here's the truth of it is. Here's the truth of it. Very often, we, not always, but very often, little girls tend to play in the socio-dramatic play area. And little boys will play in the block area. And we want the experiences to cross. We want those opportunities for boys and girls to both play in those spaces. Also, it enhances the types of experiences that they have. So I'll give you an example in the socio-dramatic play area. Many times, kids want to build beds for the babies. They want to make things that go into the socio-dramatic play area. The other thing that if you've attended any of my sessions, you've heard me say this. I don't dress up to stay home. Okay, I don't dress up to stay at my house. So when kids are dressing up and they try to go someplace and the teachers direct them back to the socio-dramatic play area, what fun is that? And my rule of thumb is if they have left the sociodramatic play area with intention. That means that they're going around taking, oftentimes they're taking orders for people. What would you like to eat? I'm going to go to McDonald's. What would you like to eat? And they start to write down all of the things that they are going to order or to pick up when they leave. Sometimes they go around asking very specific questions about things that they are doing in the sociodramatic play area. So something related to the theme that they are working on. I think it's important to recognize that when children are moving around the classroom with intentional purpose, then it's fine. Then we need to start being comfortable with that experience. It's when children are walking around aimlessly without an intended purpose, then we can redirect them and say, come, let me help you find something to do. Actually, the words that I use is something constructive to do. So I use that language even with 3 to 5-year-old children. So now let's move. Now, I'm not going to go into a lot of specifics about the sociodramatic play area, except to tell you that everything needs to have a place, and there needs to be a place for everything. Actually, let me see if I can go find a picture of this. Okay, let me see. Here we go. No. Let me escape out of this. All right, so let me find a sociodramatic play picture. Okay, and this is a short version of our video, of our slide. Okay, so we're looking at the sociodramatic play area, an example of this. I will tell you that this is my furniture that I used in my classroom like 25 years ago. It's awesome. Furniture that has lasted many, many years, but it looks beat up, and that's okay. If you don't have furniture, it's fine. Get some cardboard boxes. You can make this furniture. Pinterest is amazing. Pinterest also has some really bad ideas. And so follow us on Pinterest, and follow me on Pinterest as well. And you will see some examples of ways to take old furniture and create new things and repurpose furniture in creating sociodramatic play area. Now, I will tell you that a lot of teachers have ordered those 4-in-1 combos or the ones that are connected to each other. I am not a fan of those. And I will tell you why. Those are too small for 5-year-old bodies. 5- and 6-year-old bodies are too, like, you can quite literally only fit 1 or 2 children in that space. In this particular space, you could have a child at each piece of furniture and they would be comfortable and there wouldn't be any issues. When you look at the design of this, I want you to take a look at how everything has its place. Now, at the beginning of the school year, when you're preparing for your first days of school, you should have photographs of everything that goes into your sociodramatic play area, your block area, all of your areas. You should have a photograph of the actual thing itself. So plates, cups, saucers, either a photograph or a silhouette, which is simply a tracing of the plate, for example. Why photographs are easy is because you can take your pictures once, save them, please save them. You have no idea, from years and years and years before we had the ability to use, this digital software that we have, or just even, cameras that are, in terms of technology, what we have today. We used to use old-fashioned pictures, and where we had to go get them developed. And so what we used to do is just make photocopies of those and just save them, because year after year, you're gonna have to undo and do, because you either move stuff around, you change it up, or it just gets tattered. And so you want to take photographs, and this is where a big bulk of your time in setting up your environment is going to be. Take pictures of all of your things that you have in your classroom. So here we have our spoons with a little holder on our oven. We're going to do probably a silhouette would work just fine there, better with a picture. And then we have our bowls and our plates, and we have our coffee cups, our coffee mugs. And so we want to take pictures there and put silhouettes. Now, this is why you want to do this. And this is why everything has to have a place, and everything has its place. So there, in terms of organization, it has to be so well organized because internal organization comes from external organization. And if you've ever been in a situation like me, and I always give the example of Ross when you go to the store and things are just everywhere and you're trying to find the other shoe and you're digging through everything, I would get anxious in those types of experiences. The other thing too is we want to help children learn how to take care of their environment. And in order to take care of their environment, we have to supply the experiences for them to be successful. And so in order for them to be successful, they need to have practice. They need to know exactly where things go. There shouldn't be any question. And when I come into classrooms, one of the first things I do when I'm looking at classroom environment and there's already a setup, something like this, is I open the doors for the refrigerator, for the hutch, for the stove, and I look to see how the inside is organized. If everything's shoved inside, then that says to me that children were not taught how to carefully care for the materials in the classroom. And so this is a really important, and we think, oh, it's not a big deal. It is a big deal. Taking care of remember, our classroom is our microcosm of our community. And so taking care of our environment is one of those foundational skills that go beyond our school, that we take care of our community, we take care of our earth, that we take care. And so it's an important little detail, and it also saves you from wanting to pull your hair out. I want to make mention, look at the table here. The table has a place setting, and we are very deliberate about these types of experiences. And so what we want to do when children are done using the space, and maybe they've put food on the table or they've washed dishes or whatever, that you take a photograph. So once you have set up your space, and the hutch is a very good example. If you look over here at this hutch, if you look there, I would back up and take a photograph of that hutch. And then I would take the picture and type the words, because now with technology you can easily do this, type the words, this is what clean looks like. And I would actually hang it or set it on the hutch. We have examples of this throughout the classroom. We don't here. We probably need to do that for our model classroom. But this helps children understand what clean looks like. I will tell you that if you do not have this set up at the beginning of the school year and you don't help children learn how to do this, it will be a nightmare. I mean, in terms of cleanup, you're going to have stuff just shoved in. And the truth of it is you have to teach children how to do this anyway. This makes it easier for them to do it without you, okay? So this is an example of sociodramatic play area. Also, one of my pet peeves that I'm going to bring up here, checking the time, one of my pet peeves here is babies do not go in a crib or in a basket. The crib, one baby can go in a crib, one baby can go in a basket. If you see our baby here that you can't see the baby's head, oops, I moved it up. Let me go back. So here's the baby right there. That baby, one baby goes there. And the reason is because when I go in and I see babies stored in a basket, children have to dump them all out in order to use the one baby with the one, let's say, cradle or basket or crib. And that's not what we do. We don't dump things out in order to use something. So we have to make it a successful experience for them. I think I have some examples there too. Here are some examples of some sociodramatic play themes. In one of the schools that I work with in California, they did this beautiful setup for a doctor's office. And so you see here, there is a space for the doctor to check the baby. They had a little doctor's toolkit, and they had stuff like cotton swabs and Q-tips. And it was nice because to the left, what you don't see is they had a little waiting area, a little reception area where they could check in. There were magazines there where they could wait for the doctor to, be ready for them. In the back here, I believe, oh no, she had some postal stuff, but I believe they even had some baby blankets, and they had some other things that really supported that idea of a baby going to the doctor. To the right here is another example of a theme where if you switched it out and you did a little grocery store, and now I'm getting too far into organization of space and time as opposed to what you do to get ready for your kids coming. But here's another example I'm going to share quickly of how you set up your baby dolls and how you set up your props here at the bottom. This is a nice example of the pictures, photographs. It doesn't have to be fancy. It can be in black and white, but in photographs so that children know exactly where things need to go. Okay, so now let's go back up to the classroom that we were looking at. All right. So block area. I know a lot of teachers say blocks are super expensive. We know that. One of the things that we used to do back in the day is we used to just make our own blocks out of cardboard boxes. We would wrap them up with contact paper or even just paper like that, that craft paper. And we would just wrap it up and then use duct tape. And then one of the things that was super cool in Window Rock, Foster Hepler, he contacted, I think he's like the director of training or professional development. He contacted the local junior high and asked them if they could make blocks for them. And they did. I think in a matter of days, he gave them the sizes of the unit blocks and had them, and they were able to cut them. And so look around and see who you might be able to connect with. Making unit blocks is not that difficult. What is difficult is the sanding part of it all. I would quite honestly have children help with the sanding, or maybe you can get a group who are willing to come in. Sometimes the Eagle Scouts or groups like that are willing to come in and do some sanding of blocks, but you can have blocks made. And so in the block area, and let me see if I can find some examples of the block area in our little thing here. Let me get this one. Okay, let me find the block area. Here's an example. Yeah, let's do this one. Okay. So in the block area, it is just as critical for you to have the space completely organized. Now, matching, sorting, grouping, all of that are mathematical skills. And so the idea, and see the number of blocks we have here, I think children need a minimum of this number of blocks. Now, that's not to say you can't, and I'm talking about the top one here, not this one here. It's not to say that having fewer than this isn't a good experience for children. I think that in order for children to go deeper, though, more blocks is better. Teachers freak out when I say that, though, because they're like, oh, the cleanup and the this and the that. And here's the truth of it is, for me, math, this is an opportunity for math. It's an opportunity for math language. It's the opportunity for grouping and sorting. It's the opportunity for children because when they're all over the floor, we group them. We put the pieces together that go together, and then children take responsibility of who's going to pick up what. And so I say, are you going to pick up the double unit blocks or are you going to pick up the triangles? Which one are you going to do? It's so many opportunities for learning happen during this cleanup time. During cleanup, I help children organize the space. I have to help them as the classroom teacher. So that means during our cleanup process, before the transition begins to actually clean up, I start in the block area. So I start with those kids 10 minutes before anyone else to help organize this space. It is not appropriate to expect children to be able to do this on their own initially. This is where that 6 to 8 weeks of teaching children the routines of our classroom, and part of our routines in the classroom is cleanup. And let me show you how to do that and how to be successful at that. And so you have to have silhouettes in your block area. So you want to trace your blocks and cut them out and use contact paper. Contact paper is the best thing to use as opposed to packing tape. Packing tape will work just fine. The problem is packing tape just takes a little bit longer to pull up if you wanted to change something or switch shelves around. In the top picture here, the shelves are up against the wall. One of our rules of thumb is not to put shelves up against the wall. This is actually a small little, this isn't an actual classroom. This is where they would do a block program. And so it's kind of like in the entryway of the school. So that's why it's pushed up against the wall. What we ideally like in our model classroom, the reason why we don't have shelves up against the wall is because the wall is already a barrier. And so you want to use shelves as a barrier, as to define space, particularly in the block area. You don't want your block area to be open where children can walk or tromp through it or have to walk through it to get from point A to point B. It should be protected on 3 sides. The wall might be one of those sides. So the two examples here are, again, we wouldn't put it up against the wall. I just simply am showing you this for how blocks are organized. We also need props. And if you look at our picture down below here, one of the things that we like to do is take those shoe holders that are clear, and we add props, and you can use lots of different types of props. Actually, let me grab one real quick. I know this is weird, but let me grab this real quick. Okay, I got these, and you know, I am a teacher still at heart. I got these in some packing, something I purchased. And when I look at stuff like this, to me, I see opportunity for children in the block area. One of the problems that we have with all of the materials that we have purchased for children in classrooms, and fake food is one of the things that they fall into this category, is that children get attached to what it is. So children get attached to the orange being an orange or a fruit of some sort. And so they may not get the fruit right, unfortunately. They may say apple or pear or something like that. But it's a fruit. And the challenge with that is it doesn't help children go further and go deeper in terms of their imagination. Why is imagination important? Because imagination is the core of creativity, and creativity is at the core of innovation. So if you want children to be innovative, you have to help them develop their imagination and their creativity. One of the biggest mistakes that has been made in education, I believe, is that we have taken opportunities for creativity like painting out, and where children are able to draw as an expression of the self, not something that you have drawn, not something that you have cut out, not ditto sheets, not coloring pages. None of those belong in a kindergarten classroom, but that they have opportunities for the expression of the self. And so this, to me, can be a million different things. And I will tell you that because I look through the world through my adult lens, I might have a million things, but 5-year-old children who have the opportunity to really develop some and grow from their creative skills, they're going to see 2 million things to do with this. And so these are the types of props that I would put in the block area. Some of the foundational things that in the block area are your farm animals, sea life animals, just all different types of animals. I recommend you sorting them accordingly. Please don't put a bin with with your farm, with your cows and your horses and your dolphins and dinosaurs. I'm gonna hit a nerve right now, folks. Dinosaurs don't belong in the classroom. You see this one right here? This dinosaur doesn't belong in the classroom. These are classroom photos from places that I've worked with that I've collected over the years. Dinosaurs do not belong in the classroom. Dinosaurs are something that children get very excited by. I know that, but very infrequently, first off, they are completely extinct. We don't have the opportunity to connect with dinosaurs. Very often when I see children use dinosaurs, it's often in this type of rawr kind of experience. And by using dinosaurs, there's no connection to something that's concrete and real. And so too often I see play that isn't supportive and deep. And on the flip side of it is actually can become quite aggressive. So I say no dinosaurs in the classroom, but cars, trucks, matchbox cars, are a big deal. And if you look right here in this little corner, we found, I don't even know what this is, but we found it probably at Goodwill, and we made little parking spots. Here's the thing about matchbox cars. I'm looking at the time. I've only done 2 areas. I'm going to try to squeeze in other areas. The matchbox cars, if you put in masking tape on some sort of surface and make little parking spots, that will help them from walking, because the matchbox cars walk. They do. And it's not that children are intentionally trying to steal from you. It's that they're 5 and this is their favorite car. And that they're afraid if they put their favorite car down, they won't be able to use their favorite car the next time, that it's time for them to use the block space, or that they just walked away and simply stuck it in their pocket. And so we need to not make a big deal of it, rather create systems to support the idea of putting them back when you're done. And so we want to make parking spaces. And so if you have 6 cars, you make 6 parking spaces. Also take a look at, and I don't think you'll be able to see this very clearly, but lots of odds and ends kinds of things. You can go outside and find pine cones. If you're in that region of the state, you can find stones outside. You can even get those gemstones from Dollar Tree. You can get planks from, you know, when you're laying down flooring, you can get ceramic small tiles or planks, and those are great for creating ramps. And so this thing here that you see right here, for those of you who visited our model classroom, you'll know that that's a rain gutter. Now, you want to have books in every single area of your classroom. And I didn't mention this about the sociodramatic play area. You should have books in that area as well. Some of them one of the best books to have in that sociodramatic play area are cookbooks with recipes. Those are wonderful things to add to the classroom, but any kind of books that you might have in your home are great books to have in that area. In the block area, you're going to find books like we have here on airplanes and building and construction and cars and backhoes and cityscapes. One of the best things to do is get your hands on an overhead projector and go take pictures or go take photocopies onto film transparencies of things like the Leaning Tower of Pisa or something in your region, in your neighborhood. Maybe there's a shopping center or a complex or a building of some sort of structure in your neighborhood. And then go beyond your neighborhood, because there's some amazing structures across the world. And use that that overhead projector and put that photo that you took, that you made a photocopy on transparency paper, and you put it up on the wall and see if children can build that structure. So that's an idea to deepen that experience in the block area. I think I shared with you some basic things that oh, and people. I don't know that we have an example of the people here in our class that we have in our classroom, but the best people to purchase are from Lakeshore, and they are not the plastic ones that don't move. They are the ones, because those are very, very common. They're called block play people. The best people to purchase are squishy people, and they're bendable. And I'll see if at some point today I can find the link to that. I will tell you they're not cheap. What I would say is put in some sort of request to see if anybody is willing to help out to purchase those little people. But if you collected them over time, it might be easier that way. But one of the best ways, and I don't think I have that picture here, where we have our little people, it's not in here, where we've taken photographs of children and put them on binder clips. And so you use your own children in your classroom for your block play. This is an example here. Let me just blow this up again because I forgot to mention this. This is an example of what we would add in a block area in terms of writing tools. Graph paper, alphabet, letters, maybe some rulers, some pencils, some markers, some Post-it notes, some index cards. There's lots of ways to do this. There's not one single way. And you have to just utilize the stuff that you already have. But even if you have scratch sheet of paper from, let's say, the printer machine or the copier in your school, if you could collect some of that recycled paper, use the back side of it, you can even use scratch sheet of paper that children can use in your learning areas. So it's really looking at things in a creative sort of way. Now let's go back up to that picture once again. Okay. In this space, a little bit about block area. Remember, everything needs to be well organized and protected on 3 sides at least. This is actually protected on 4 sides. Wall is one side, wall 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. Having 1 or 2 entry points is a good idea. 1 is fine, 2 is better, but you want to make sure that it isn't a pass-through space. Okay. So the next one is our visual arts area, creative expression area. We have shifted names as we have gone on the course of this project. In this particular area, you want it by a sink if you can. You want to have real materials, and you start the classroom off with basic materials. And so if you've gone to our model classroom, that's not how you start the school year. You don't start the school year with everything that you own out, because it will be a nightmare. Children have to learn how to, first off, the routines of the classroom. And that's kind of, we've got to get the foundations of what the classroom looks like for you in your mind first, and then we will establish the routines of the classroom. The expectations in terms of how we take care of our things needs to be well established. And so in order to do that, you start off slow, and you start off with very specific materials to enhance their experiences that they're having during their first 6 to 8 weeks. And so an example of that in this particular area is I might bring in crayons. I might bring in different sizes of paper. So maybe I have little books, and then I have half sheets of paper, and I have larger sheets of paper and construction paper. So I have different types of paper. A cool thing to do is just add different materials like wax paper or foil, and just rip them up into, you know, decent sized sheets, and then make that another medium for them to use as they are as they're writing, drawing, painting, that kind of thing. I would start with washable markers. If you've been in the classroom, you know I'm a big fan of Sharpies, and people freak out. And I think kids are washable, and I know the issue is always about children's clothing getting dirty. I know that. I was raised in that same type of experience where, you know, I was in the pretty little dresses, and, you know, I was not allowed to get dirty. And so we want to make sure that you have smocks available for children, okay? So back in the day, before there were smocks that we could afford, we used long sleeve men's t-shirts, and we just put them on backwards. And so you can also use you can make smocks out of all kinds of things. Just cut a hole in it. A paper bag will even work. You can just cut a hole in it and put it over the kid's body. And oftentimes those kiddos will tell you, I can't get dirty. And so other children, they're like totally fine with it. And there are some children that I can't get dirty, or I don't like to get dirty. And so you want to have something available to them. So markers, crayons, and different types of paper. Also, books. Go to your library. Check out some books on different types of artists, maybe painters, and have maybe 1 or 2 books displayed at the beginning that just have the different types of art. You know, there's all kinds of impressionist painting. I mean, it's just amazing the different types of paintings there are. And then I would set up an easel. Now, if you don't have an easel, you can make an easel. An easel is not difficult to make. Plexiglass will work. In our classroom, I took a crib apart, and I used the 2 ends of the plexiglass of the crib, and then we just actually tied it with the little wire. No, it wasn't wire. It's like a bungee of some sort on the side, so that it made a little A-frame. But you can make it out of just plywood. You could also, in some classrooms, I've seen them take paper, a roll of paper, and bring it down up against the wall. And then you can paint, and you just protect the space, protect your wall space. So it might be with newspaper, it might be with some butcher paper. You just put some sort of protection behind the space, and you can make an easel that rolls down. I think I've actually seen a teacher use like a shower curtain rod, and then brackets that come out. Look on Pinterest, there's this idea. I know I didn't create this. And then you can pull it down, and then the children can, then cut their piece off once they're done. But easel, now let me tell you why easel in this type of painting is important. This movement, if you've been to any of my sessions, this movement of the wrist comes before this movement. So when children come to you in kindergarten, they're going to come like this in terms of writing utensils. They're going to come in all different ways, because a lot of kiddos haven't had the experience of using markers, pencils, and crayons. That's the truth of it. And it's not always about issues of poverty. It's sometimes the issue is that I don't want my kid to mark on the walls, and so I don't give him a whole lot of opportunity to do that or mark himself. And so when they come to school, a lot of kiddos have a difficult time with this type of grasp and this type of grip. And so our common sense kicks in, and we go, let's give them more opportunities for writing. So if the child holds like this, we want to help him learn how to hold it like this, right? Or like this. I was holding it wrong. Hold it like this. And what do we give? We give more time to write, more time to write, more time to write. When in actuality, he needs this or she needs this, and then these types of things, and then even cutting with scissors. I don't have scissors in front of me. I have this tool. And so this type of experience develops these fine motor skills. And this here comes first, then this comes first, and then they will have the strength to be able to do this effectively. If you skip a step, if this doesn't happen before this, oftentimes it goes back to that Jenga that I showed at the beginning, that at the bottom, if we've skipped developmental progressions that we haven't allowed or supported or fostered in terms of growth and development, then we will see the repercussions of that as they continue to age. So we start to see more and more difficulty in terms of fine motor development as they get older. And so what I think my threshold, it's often 3rd and 4th grade, then 6th, 7th grade, and definitely high school. We'll see some implications if we skip developmental stages, okay? So an easel in your classroom. At the beginning of your classroom at the beginning of your school year, you're just gonna put one color of paint. You're gonna put one color of paint and see how kiddos do, okay? Just one color. And then you will add a second color in the second week and see how kiddos do, okay? But you actually have to teach them. You have to show them this is a paintbrush. This isn't a paintbrush, by the way. I had one on my desk somewhere. I have odds and ends all over my desk. But you want to show them what a paintbrush is and how we use a paintbrush and how we clean a paintbrush. You actually have to take children to the sink and rinse it out and show them that it's not until the water runs clear that the paintbrush is clean. And once the paintbrush has been rinsed out, you're going to take a paper towel and you're going to dab it until the water has been, as much water has been pulled out of the paintbrush. It's not dripping everywhere. Where do I put the paintbrush in order to dry? These are all the things you have to think about when you're planning your school year. Where do children put their paintings when they're done with them? The idea is that you're not running around the classroom going, teacher, I need more paper. Teacher, I need more paint. Teacher, that's not what you're going to lose your mind, and this will not be successful if you set it up this way. So at the beginning of the school year, you're going to put paper that's available to them. If you don't have that roll down and help them learn to cut that across, then you're going to have paper set up for them where they can put it up, and then they need a place to put it afterwards. They need either a drying rack. A clothes rack will work as well, like a clothes drying rack. If you have the luxury of having a space where you can put that right outside your door, and some classrooms that we have been in have like little courtyards. It's amazing that you could simply put that outside and children can take it outside. But they need to know the system. First, I put the smock on. Second, I get my brushes. Third, I get my paint if the paint is not already set up. Thing I learned after I was a classroom teacher, you take a paint cup and you put a plastic Ziploc baggie inside and fold the sides over, and then that way at the end of the day, you can seal that shut, and when it gets icky and gross, because it will, you just toss that away and you don't have to wash your paint cups. It's the best thing ever. I wish I would have known that when I was a classroom teacher. It would have made my life easier. But children need to know the steps. So I get my paint, or is my paint already set up? I'm getting something here. Oh. And then once that gets the paintbrush, I'm done with it. Where do I clean it? What does clean look like? What do I do with it in order for it to dry? What do I do with my painting? So you have to think of that whole process as you are developing that space. Now, the other materials that you're going to add, hopefully, to the space are real art materials, okay? That is chalk pastels, and you want to teach children how to use these materials. Don't just put them out there and then expect them to magically know how to do this. The second thing is oil pastels is another great thing to have in this area. And then eventually introduce Sharpies and show them how to use them appropriately. And real watercolors, not Crayola watercolors, real watercolors. Real watercolors are vibrant, they're rich, and they are incredible when you use them with Sharpies. And so those are, maybe we'll do another session on how the types of art, the materials that you offer for children. In this space, please do not include worksheets, coloring books, or anything that you have cut out for them to create. That is not art. Art is not something that you create. Art is the expression of the self. And so if you create it, then that's your work, not theirs. So this whole, and there's tons of stuff out there where you can cut out little pieces, and then you put it together and you make a horse. You put it together and you make Dr. Seuss's hat with the stripes. That's your work, not theirs. And so that is not what we consider developmentally appropriate art experiences for children. Developmentally appropriate art experiences for children is the process is what's important, not the product. So you have to let go of the expectation that you're going to have 24 look the same thing, looking the same way. If children are, I don't know, creating something and they put the eyeballs where the eyeballs aren't supposed to be, who cares? That's their work, not yours. And so you have to let go of any attachment that you have to an outcome. Now you can teach process. You can help children learn process or how to use materials effectively. That's what I mean by that. But in terms of outcomes, you have to let go of it. So that's a little bit about the creative arts area. I've already gone an hour. I'm going to go a little bit more and just go over, let's see, designs of space. And then I'm going to go over the daily schedule. You know, it's a webinar, so if you want to jump off, you want to jump back on, you can whenever you want. We're going to be posting this on Facebook. If you look at this particular classroom, you're going to see that the areas are divided up. So I've gone over the sociodramatic play area, the block area, and the creative expression area. Now, this is what freaks folks out, and I know it does, because your tables are not all put together. How and where will I put children when I have to seat them all at the same time? Now, you have to make this decision as a classroom teacher. You have to decide how many spaces you're going to use for children's, you know, to sit. We have so many teachers who have shifted to flexible seating. Now, let me tell you about flexible seating. Flexible seating is a great way to make accommodations for children that need that additional support. It also is, to me, makes the most sense that if a child is more comfortable lying down on the carpet, then let's say in the whole group area that they're working on some sort of research that they're doing and they're lying down on the carpet, why do we care that they're not sitting at the table? Why do we care? Why do we care if a child is standing up instead of sitting down? These are all things that we become so attached to, but why? Why? There are teachers that we have worked with in the Amphitheater School District that have created these great flexible seating opportunities for children in the classroom, and that some of them are sitting on carpet, cushions on the floor, taking the legs off of a table, bring the table all the way down to the floor, and putting cushions around the table. That's a great way, and a lot of children are far more comfortable that way. Some children like when the table's pushed all the way down closer to the ground to sit on their knees or to just kneel as they're working. I've met so many boys that I have worked with over the course of my career that prefer standing as opposed to sitting when they're working. So looking at when are the times that we have to sit at the table together, how many spaces do you need for that? So when I set this space up and I say, okay, we should have a table in the creative expression area, teachers again will freak out because all my tables are not grouped together. How will I watch the children in the math if they're sitting at this table in the math area and the creative expression area? This is where routines, rituals, relationships, and I'm forgetting one, aren't I? That all of those pieces are together and that they are functioning from day one. You are working to help children learn what to do and how to do at school, that you won't have a problem once you establish these routines in the classroom, okay? But again, you have to decide what your comfort level is. In this bottom space here, we have the literacy and publishing area. This is where if you do have a horseshoe table and you'd like to keep your horseshoe table, you might include it in this space here. Any area in the classroom, you can do small group instruction. You can do your tier 2 intervention in the creative art or the art area. You can easily sit with a small group of children and do an activity. Now, during your ELA block, you're going to be utilizing all of these tables. Or the tables, and there may be a task that children are doing in the dramatic play area, or maybe you're using the carpet in the whole group area and you have a specific task, or maybe children are working on illustrating a big book, a classroom big book. And so you've got 3 children working in the whole group area. You've got some children at the math table that are maybe doing a game around language development. And so they may be playing there, and then you're doing your tier 2 intervention over here in that bottom table, and you have another group who are creating a story, or maybe doing some documentation of some of the work that we did the day before, or working on some CBC words, and they were doing some play types of experiences around that. So you're utilizing all of the tables during your ELA block and even your math block, but I don't want you to get stuck in the space that all learning happens at tables. It can happen on the floor. It can happen, you utilize all of your entire classroom, okay? Okay, now let's go back to, here's an example of our circle time area. So in this is our model classroom. And then this particular area, now, you know, I prefer circle rugs. It's very hard to find a circle rug. You don't need to have a circle rug. You can have a square rug and have children sit on the perimeter of the rug. What we are not fans of are the blocks that go across, the red, orange, yellow, or the alphabet ones where children sit on each letter of the alphabet. Now, I know why we do this. We do this because we want all the children to be paying attention to me as the classroom teacher. I have important things to share. I want you to learn to listen to me. I want you to learn to pay attention to when I'm talking to you. What we want for children to do in a classroom is we want for children to develop an understanding of that when anyone speaks, that we listen. So it's not just me as the classroom teacher, but as a classroom community, we listen to one another. And so when we have them sit in a circle, we want children to learn to listen, and for children who are developing English as a second language, they need to see lips move. This is a really important part when children are starting to develop an understanding of a language that is not their home language. It's part of their developmental process. So if someone is talking, I watch their lips move. It helps me be able to hear. For whatever reason, I do the very same thing. I do that quite a bit, actually. I look at lips when I'm listening to someone, and then we take turns. So a good way to do this, and I don't know if you see this over here in our whole group area, and this is setting up your whole group space. Your whole group area, we have a little microphone here. So a microphone, I think a lot of people have used things like sticks. We call them talking sticks. Teachers have used certain squishy balls that children move around the classroom. So you have to introduce that at the beginning of the school year. So some way to help them learn to talk and listen. That it's not just time to be quiet, and listen to the teacher, but that we are talking and listening with one another. It's one of our, it's in our standards. It's one of the standards that we help with young children, is learn the whole process of that dialogue and how that happens. And so a microphone, and you can make your own. We bought this cheap one from somewhere for like $1, but you can make your own. A microphone of some sort, a stick of some sort, but some sort of tool to help them learn to be able to speak and to listen to others. Now, in this large group space, we have other props that would not be in this space if we had children coming in early in the morning. We have sit-upons, so that's another thing that you would start your first week of school. If you wanted to use sit-upons are used as space holders for children. And you can see this here. This is covered by a "We Wish You Well" sign. But this is a 12 by 12 sheet of just cardstock. You can use just any old construction paper, and have children draw a picture of themselves, of anything, and then have a picture of them on the back side of it, or even on the front side. Have them write their name the best way they possibly can. And these placeholders are set around the perimeter of the large group space, and it helps you be able to set children down where to get ready for circle time. And so the nice thing about sit-upons, and you have to teach them the appropriate use of sit-upons, because I have quite literally said to teachers have said to me, this is what they do with it. They do this, they do this, they do this, they do this. You actually have to teach them what a sit-upon is used for, and the appropriate use of a sit-upon is to sit your body upon it. This is your space. And the nice thing about using sit-upons in the first week or two, actually the entire school year, but the nice thing about the first 2 weeks of school is you figure out what works and what doesn't work. Now, just in case you're a new teacher, you may not know this, but there's a honeymoon period that happens very often. Not always, but very often. The first 2 weeks of school is the honeymoon. Sometimes honeymoon lasts a month for some children. And so they come in maybe a little quiet, a little uncertain, just kind of feeling out the environment. And then the honeymoon starts and you're like, oh, wow, this is great. You know, just the sheer exhaustion of just getting kids from point A to point B and knowing the routine of the day. And we'll totally go through that. The next time we meet, we'll talk about more routines. Right now I'm talking about getting your environment ready. And so when we're getting the environment ready for kids, the nice thing about sit-upons is that you're able to move after that honeymoon period is over. So Joshua may have done fine next to Anthony for the first 2 weeks of school, and then all of a sudden something happened and they became buddies, and then it became very challenging for them to sit next to one another. You can just simply move the sit-upon and figure out what formula works best for you. It also provides the opportunity if, you know, if Jessica had a very hard time or something has happened at home, she's having a difficult transition into school, she may need to sit next to you. And so that's, you know, during these first 2 weeks of school, or maybe even longer than that, Jessica sits next to you and you can put her sit-upon right next to you. I'm a teacher that teaches from the floor. I know this is very difficult for a lot of teachers. Teachers I think a lot of teachers have their own chairs and their own way where they sit at the circle time area. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just a floor sitter. And so for me, you know, one of my mantras is I teach from the heart, I teach from the floor. And so one of the reasons why I do that is because when children are having a difficult moment, and they're having a difficult time with whatever has happened in their world, I can pull them in closer to me. I can even sit them on my lap as I'm conducting circle time in a seamless sort of fashion. That if somebody is having a difficult time, I can just kind of call them over and just have them sit on my lap. And I can just kind of massage their hands a little bit, or I can have them sit next to me if that's uncomfortable to you. Have them sit next to me and I just put my arm around them as I continue to conduct circle time. I don't do I'm waiting for so-and-so, so-and-so's not listening to me. I don't do any of that. I just simply kind of go with the flow of the experience and try to support children's needs as we continue to move, you know, throughout the experience that we are having at circle time. And so let me see, what else do I want to say about this space? Sit-upons, we also have the daily schedule. And I don't know, you can see the daily schedule here. I might have it. Let me see if I have it here. Let me see if I have it here. So daily schedule picture is here. So let me see if I can pull this up for you. And then probably after the daily schedule, I'll have to stop and we'll have to, because I can sit here and quite literally speak for 4 hours. But we'll continue. I promise we will continue. And I will post probably into next week. We'll do another set of things to get ready for your classroom. And again, we're working on the environment right now. All right, so you should have in your first day of school a daily schedule posted for children, okay? Now, ideally, in your first week to 2 weeks, you're going to take photographs of children going through the course of the day, but not at the beginning of the school year. At the beginning of the school year, you're not going to have pictures of children. You're not going to have any of that. So you have to find pictures either online or take photos of your classroom or use stuff like Boardmaker if you have access to that. So you're going to take a picture of children coming to school. So maybe a bus if children are bus riders, or maybe the classroom door that says welcome to school. And that you're going to have some sort of picture placeholder. So you're going to have a picture placeholder for whatever your routine, your schedule of the day is. And I'll actually give you an example of a schedule next time we come together. So you want a picture of welcome, and then let's say your first thing that you do is whole group gathering, your morning meeting, whatever you call it. And then you have breakfast, and then you have maybe your ELA block, your outdoor exploration, learning areas, lunch recess. So you're going to take photographs of these experiences over the course of the first 2 weeks of school. Now, some kids will come in and you'll just know, whoa, I'm going to really need to focus on this particular kid in this particular time of day. Take a picture of him being successful in that time of day. So if you have a kiddo that at breakfast is just a little wiggle worm, you know, because he doesn't sit at home. Maybe they sit in front of the TV at home, and so maybe, you know, him sitting at home or at school at a table is very difficult for him. And so you want to take a picture of him being successful at the experience and use it as the picture for your daily schedule. So I want to make very, very clear that you don't need to take these pictures to go get them developed. They don't even need to be in color. They can be in black and white, and they may change because your schedule might change. You might go in with this intention of this is what we're going to do first and this is going to come next, and then you go through the day for the first week and you go, that is just not working. And so you want to figure out a way to create the schedule where it's not permanent. And here you can clearly, I mean, you can see how this is kind of a makeshift schedule. There's nothing perfect about this. And there's intention behind that. We didn't want to create something that you go, oh, there's not, you know, I can't make this. So in this example, one of the things that we had a very hard time with is we have this slump rock in our classroom, and the daily schedule kept falling down. And we figured out that when you use hot glue gun on the slump rock, it doesn't ruin the wall itself. And so it doesn't even pull the paint off. So it was the best thing that we could have ever discovered to attach things to walls like this. And so we had a hard time, and that's why it's a little uneven. And these little squares were intended to be pulled off. So we had like magnets, but because we had such problems with them falling off, we just adhered them. So some teachers, this might work for you. You create it so that there's magnets or Velcro. And as your day progresses, you pull down what you have finished. So if you did the welcome, everyone is here now, we're at whole group, we're going to pull that down. And you want to make reference to this schedule every day, okay? So you're going to say to children, okay, good morning. You know, you do your good morning, your welcome letter to the children, your good morning message is what a lot of teachers call it, to the children. And then you want to pull that down once your whole group gathering is down, or use a clothespin or some sort of marker to show us go through the course of the day. That helps children, okay? Let me tell you why this is important, because I know some of you are going, this is a lot of work, and why? Why do I need to do this? Because children live in the here and now. And even though they go through the course of the entire, let's say up until January, and we get super frustrated because he's still having a hard time transitioning. He's still having a hard time leaving his mom. He's still having a hard time going from point A to point B in the morning. Children who have had any, and it's not just children with trauma, I want to make this very clear, but this is especially true with children with any kind of traumatic experience or inconsistencies in their world. When they have these types of experiences and the inconsistencies in their world, they're uncertain as to what's going to happen next. So this type of experience of the schedule from left to right, not down, up and down, because we read from left to right. So that's a very important thing when you're developing your schedule. Helps children know what's going to come next. Helps them understand passage over time. Helps them know that the next day at this school, this is a safe place for you, and we start all over again. And sometimes we have special things that happen. If something special is going to happen, put it in your daily message, or put some sort of indication in this daily schedule where something different is going to happen. Children need to know what's going to happen before it happens, because you can easily send a child into a freak out mode, into the reptilian part of the brain stem, where they start to get a little overwhelmed, and then explosive at times is the other extreme, because something has changed in their schedule. So this daily schedule is super important for you to begin with, and again, make reference to it at your circle time and what's going to happen through the course of the day. And it's a time for you to even talk about the types of experience that you're going to have during your ELA block, something new, something different. Maybe there's something cool that we're going to do when we go outside today. You should be planning for outdoor experiences as well. So we'll talk about that another time. So anyway, these are the things that I would say start working on now. Getting photographs of your classroom, start arranging your classroom. But even if you can't get into your room yet, if you can get to your materials, if you can get to markers and crayons and paper and some collection of some of their props for block area, some sociodramatic play clothes, ask your families at the beginning of the school year, make a wish list. A lot of people have plates or silverware or mixing utensils or pots and pans that they're not really, they don't use them very often. And, they're like, well, I don't really want to give it away. But if I'm giving it to my kid's classroom, that I can do. So make a list of stuff like that. Old cell phones, dress up clothes. You want to make sure that you have both genders in terms of clothing. So you want to have male boots and shoes and girls boots and shoes and dresses. And if you can get a sports jacket of some sort, you want to make sure that you have both representation. It's so much easier to get girl stuff sometimes than it is boy stuff, or, in terms of what we recognize as girl and boy stuff. So we want to make sure that you have that. And so make a list out to families. They are your best resource. I will tell you, I have gotten the best of things from families who want to help. So anyway, I hope I've given you enough stuff to work on at the beginning of this as you're getting ready for the school year. What I was saying was, take pictures of those things, crayons, markers, just start taking photographs of those and printing those out so that you can, when you get into your classroom, you'll have all that already cut out, and then all you have to do is put it onto your shelves. One of the things that Trudy did, if you saw that in our model classroom, we had those, they're like little pocket things. And I forget what they use them for, but they're little pocket things that we got like at Staples, and you can slip the picture inside. The nice thing about those is that whenever you interchange that space, you put something different, something new, you can easily slip that little piece out and put the other picture of the next thing. But I will tell you that your entire classroom should be labeled on day one, and you should have your daily schedule up for children, going from left to right in photographs, not in words, because most children do not come to kindergarten knowing how to read. Okay, so we went over, just kind of a wrap up, we went over some areas of the classroom. We went over the socio-dramatic play area, we went over the block area, we went over creative or the visual arts area. We talked a little bit about whole group and sit-upons, and we talked about daily schedule going from left to right. So hopefully that gives you some stuff to work on until the next school year starts. What we are going to be working on next week, I'm hoping to be able to jump on next week, if not sooner than that. We're going to take a look at classroom rules. We're going to look at some routines in the classroom and the daily schedule. I also need to finish up in terms of the environment. So we're going to look at the literacy area, some of the materials that you might offer into that space, and the literacy and publishing area and the science area. So we'll go over those two areas. We'll look at the daily schedule, and we'll go through some routines through the day that we recommend. So I hope this is useful to you all. I know that I didn't have the opportunity for other folks to dialogue. What I'd like to do is, once I get through the information, or maybe this weekend at some point, or into next week, I'll provide an opportunity for you to ask questions. You can also live questions if anyone has them. If you have questions that you'd like to post at the bottom, I'm more than willing to answer them. I want to make sure that we're providing the best level of support to you all as you are designing and getting ready for the upcoming school year. So thank you all for your attentiveness. You're attentive. I'm getting tired too. So I'm looking at the time. I was on for an hour and a half. Can you believe it? Okay, so be well. We will see you soon, and thank you for hanging with me.